Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name's GBay99. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, we're back with a little bit of an unusual video where today I want to make a specific guide for something to watch out for in Season 8, and that thing is Kleptomancy, if you could not tell by the title of this video. At the time of making this video, 2 of the top 4 win rate top laners take Kleptomancy as their primary rune build. The most played AD carry out there currently still takes Kleptomancy, and 4 of the top 7 most played top laners all take Kleptomancy as well. It's become a really popular build that whether you're playing it yourself or you're going up against someone on the enemy team who's taken it, you will likely see it and have to deal with it at least once every few games in League these days. And seeing as it's more important than ever to understand how Kleptomancy works with Season 8 starting today, I feel like today would be a pretty good time to talk about this very interesting keystone rune. Before we do that though, I do have to say this is another sponsored video. Today's video is once again sponsored by ProGuides.com. ProGuides is a great resource for any of you looking to get better at League of Legends. They have a host of tips, tricks, and other guides that you can check out on their site with free access with the link in the description down below to a 7-day free trial. They've supported the channel for a while, so shout out to them once again. But anyway, let's get back into the video. There's this big misconception out there about Kleptomancy that a lot of people have about the rune, especially people in lower ratings. That misconception being, people think Kleptomancy is good on champions who can proc it easily. Now, this isn't necessarily false. The first 2 big champions that we saw taking Kleptomancy when the rune was first introduced were Gangplank and Ezreal, who both worked really well with the rune since they could proc it with their Qs. All they had to do was throw out a Q and land it. Ezreal just had to land his Q that has like a 2-second cooldown, and Gangplank doesn't even have a skill shot. He just has to press Q on an enemy, and then boom, they get to activate Kleptomancy automatically just with their Q landing, since their Q also counts as an auto attack. This makes it so it was very easy for them to continue throwing out Qs and racking up Kleptomancy procs in laning phase, and it's just easy to see why it was a staple build on them and continues to be so today. But this isn't really the only factor about when Kleptomancy is good on a champion. There are plenty of champions out there who can proc Kleptomancy very, very easily, where it's not really a good rune on them. It's pretty garbage. And there's also plenty of champions out there where they have a very difficult time proccing Kleptomancy, but it's actually their staple keystone rune. The number one thing that makes Kleptomancy good on a champion isn't necessarily how easily they can proc it, but rather it's all about which champions want to accelerate their builds, meaning which champions want to lose lane and who also need items to be good. Take Nasus for example. Nasus is the exact opposite of Gangplank or Ezreal when it comes to proccing Kleptomancy easily. Now he can use his Q in a sort of similar way where once he uses his Q and auto attacks, that automatically gives him a Kleptomancy proc, but he's Nasus, which means he wants to be stacking his Q all the time on minions and not really using his Q in the early game on opponents. This is really a bit of a conundrum when you first start playing Nasus and taking Kleptomancy on him. When do you want to Q a minion and when do you want to Q your opponent to proc your Kleptomancy? It's super counterintuitive really when you think about it, and when I first started trying to play Kleptomancy Nasus when the rune came out, a lot of people criticized me for being an idiot because it just doesn't make sense, does it? But it actually works really well on him. Currently, Nasus has the 2nd highest win rate for any top laner if you exclude a few champions that have non-existent play rates. He's only behind Gangplank himself. So why is Nasus so good with Kleptomancy? Again, it's about accelerating your build and getting your items faster, not just proccing it easily. Nasus has this build that currently involves taking Kleptomancy, a few other gold generation runes, and also involves taking Ancient Coin to get a bunch of gold and try and get his Triforce as early as possible, as well as getting his first few tank items early. This allows Nasus to really scale and hit his power spike earlier in the game. Nasus is already a champion that's built to lose a lane, but then power spike very hard into the mid and late game. So allowing him to hit that power spike even earlier can make him crazy strong and currently makes him one of the best top lane champions out there. This is an important point actually. When you take Kleptomancy, what you're basically saying is, I'm going to intentionally give up the laning phase for the sake of accelerating my build, and that giving up the laning phase part is why it's so good on some champions while not so good on others. Take Yorick for example. Yorick is a champion that's very similar to Nasus. They have almost the exact same Q ability where they kind of want to stack it a little bit, it deals some extra damage, and it resets the auto attack, and it both procs Kleptomancy in the exact same way. Only Yorick doesn't even have to worry about stacking it infinitely. He just has to use it on a couple of minions to set up his ghouls, and he can also set up his ghouls with his passive, so it's not necessarily the most important thing for him to use on minions. He can spam his Q on his opponent all day and proc Kleptomancy as much as he wants, so why doesn't he take it? Well, it's because Yorick doesn't really scale as well with items. Yorick is all about winning the laning phase and trying to punish his opponent, bullying them around early on. If you sacrifice that laning phase just to get your items a little bit quicker, you're actually hurting your effectiveness as a pick overall. Yorick does not nearly scale as well with items as other champions do. He's good because of his abilities, not because he can also get Triforce or Sterix Gauge or something. If you try and think about the other champions out there that could proc Kleptomancy very, very easily, but choose not to take it, champions like Teemo, champions like Pantheon, or even champions like Riven, this is the reason why they never take it and why it's a pretty bad rune on them, because even if they can proc it so easily and get all these auto attacks and Klepto procs off, it doesn't really matter. These are champions that are supposed to win their laning phase, and none of them would ever sacrifice their laning phase just so they could get an item a little bit faster than they normally would. Well, if you think about the other champions out there who do take Kleptomancy as a very important keystone for them, champions like Nasus, champions like Jax currently, or even if you think about someone like Fiora, these are all champions that do very well with items. They're all champions that really want to accelerate their scaling and get to that late game scaling as quickly as possible, and they're also champions that are, for the most part, kind of okay with giving up the laning phase. Honestly, I've been thinking about this a little bit, and I don't know if I'm going to be making some sort of clickbait title for this video about how Kleptomancy is overpowered, because I actually don't know if Kleptomancy is OP. The idea of being able to accelerate your build like this is really strong, and it might be overpowered, particularly on these late game scaling champions, a lot of top laners out there that really want to hit a late game power spike as early as possible. That's a very strong ability to have, and it might be overpowered, but it also might be balanced because these champions have to lose laning phase, and they often have to lose the laning phase very, very hard. And if you're in a game where you're going up against one of these builds, by the way, that's what you want to look to do. Punish these guys in laning phase. That's how you beat them. This is an example of a game I played earlier today where I played against a Kleptomancy Nasus, and things started off really well. I executed this strategy pretty well at first. Because I had a keystone and a set of runes that I could use to damage him and buff myself in the laning phase, it was really, really easy to zone him and get a few solo kills and just deny a bunch of CS. He kind of had to give up the laning phase, and I tried my hardest to push this advantage and delay that scaling from Kleptomancy as much as possible, which would just sort of make him scale like a more normal champion and kind of take away the rune factor. But unfortunately, I eventually messed up everything a few times and gave him a few kills, and eventually he came back in the game, specifically after he maxed his Wither. I just couldn't do anything anymore because I was Aurelia and he was Nasus. So, you know, he maxes Wither, he gets to win the game. I don't really know if I can do anything against that 1v1. But that's really what you want to look for if you're going for one of these Kleptomancy builds. Look to go for it on a certain champion that has a late game win condition. A champion that can just automatically win the game later on in the match if they have some sort of amazing thing that just allows them to have a huge impact in late game team fights or late game split pushing or something. If you can survive the laning phase and get decent CS and just pull ahead of your opponents through the gold category, even if you don't have any kills, and especially if you compare Kleptomancy with other gold-giving runes and maybe even Ancient Coin, then I don't know if I would call it OP still, but it's definitely a meta thing right now where we're seeing a lot of champions go for this, and they're all having a lot of success. If you're stuck going against one of these champions in solo queue, remember two things. Number one, you have to beat them early on or they will outscale you. If you aren't punishing them for their weak laning phase, then you are going to lose endgame 1v1s, if not the game itself. But the other thing you should remember is, don't forget, they have to auto-attack you to proc their Kleptomancy rune. This means that when they're coming forward to auto-attack you, or if Gangplank is coming forward to throw out his Q or something, that's an opportunity for you to go aggressive and go try and get a trade on them, try and get a kill. That's your opportunity to engage and see if you can set them behind. The frustrating thing about this rune, though, is you're on a timer. You have to look for those early opportunities because you won't have any of them late. Anyway, though, that's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow, but until then, good luck in solo queue and have a wonderful day.